Gita.
Thank you, Matt. There's a group of American Iranians outside this building today protesting to what they're saying, very long delay in the processing of their family members' visa applications, different types of visas, obviously. And they're saying that they're hearing of others who have put in applications much later than them, and those people are processed and they've received their visas, however, not these people. Is priority being given to any certain group of visa applicants?
So I can't speak to those questions with any specificity. As you know, visa records are confidential under law, under U.S. law. But I can say that we review and act on all visa applications as quickly as we can, but it's important that we are thorough in that review. Visa applicants have to undergo a thorough security screening. That's part of the process, as well as other measures. And so that's the process we have to go through. I know it's sometimes frustrating for people. Oftentimes we can't explain the delays that there are in acting on any one applicant's status or their application, but it's something that we try to do as quickly as we can, but not at the expense of sacrificing thoroughness.
You did say you cannot explain, and that's one of their major grievances. Well, at least tell us, what's going on, so we either know it's one way or another, yes or no, or if they need to do something.
I certainly understand the difficult situation that people are in when they have applications that are pending and they want to either, of course, first priority is to see them approved, and absent being approved, they just want an answer. All I can say from here is that we do act as quickly as possible, but sometimes it's a difficult process. There is security screening that we have to go through and other steps, and so we take those measures as quickly as we can, but our first priority is to make sure that we're thorough. Yeah, Michelle.
To the region, did the secretary discuss with the Israeli officials the delivery of arms to Israel, and is there any update regarding the 2,000 pound bombs?
I don't have any readout with respect to that potential discussion about that. It is something that often comes up in those meetings, but no, there is no update with the delivery of the 2,000 pound bombs. That shipment remains paused and under review.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Matt. A couple of questions. It's very nice to hear State Department talk about the political violence. Last week in Pakistan, similar comment you had made was taken out of perspective a little bit because President Trump has been shot as well, and Imran Khan was shot as well. But over there, the reaction was not the way it is in the U.S. So my first question is that Supreme Court of Pakistan, most of the judges favored Imran Khan. The guy was shot. Political violence in the U.S., all 1,000 people, 600 pleaded guilty, 400 were charged, punishment was given. Foreign minister is charged today in the similar violence that happened in Pakistan a year or 2 years, more than a year after the political violence happened over there, and he's charged today. The political party is being banned of Imran Khan. Today, the government has decided that. Your entire Congress has decided to rule in that favor. And I have been asking you these things for a year and a half, these same questions. But over there, you are not making the comments that you make here for democracy, political. Why is that?
So I guess I'm missing what the actual question was.
So the question is that with an ally like Pakistan, why do you not have the same feelings of either political violence or democracy or the rule of law?
So I think you have missed the very many times I have addressed this exact question from this podium, where I have said, of course, we abhor political violence in any country, including Pakistan, and have spoke out against it and condemned it. And we support the rule of law in Pakistan and every country in the world. And we want to see respect for democratic principles and people's fundamental human rights and democratic rights upheld. That's true in Pakistan. It's true everywhere in the world. That's been something I've spoken to many times. So I think the premise of the question with respect is wrong. Go ahead.
So just one more
question.
Matt, just one more, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
In Pakistan, there was a funeral procession of an Afghan poet. He was killed in Islamabad. In Pakistan, you know, there's 1 million Afghans. I've always spoken in the favor of Afghans. But last week what I saw, and there are 50,000 Afghans which the U.S. wants to pull out as well. there was a funeral procession from Islamabad to his native village in Waziristan. And the entire way, thousands of Afghans were holding Afghanistan flags, chanting against the serving military, political, every leadership you can imagine. And then people from Voice of America, staff members of Voice of America were spreading that on the social media. So two related questions. Are you in the favor of Pakistan taking some stern actions against those those Afghans, whether it's deportation or, and if you would be interested in moving these 50,000 Afghans with the U.S. wants from Pakistan? And lastly, Voice of America is a state-run entity. I do not understand how they take interest in local politics.
So I will just say, with respect to the specific incident to which you're referring, I'm not aware of it, so I can't possibly comment on it. Ryan, go ahead.
Wait a second. You're going to let that stand? Voice of America is a state-run organization?
I've already noted that I disagreed with a number of the premises. They are funded by the United States, but of course they have
Funded by the U.S. Congress.
with the U.S. Congress, but they have complete editorial independence.
Question on the point that he was making, that the Pakistan Supreme Court did recently
Yeah.
rule that about 20 seats or so ought to be delivered to the PTI. The government then responded by banning Imran Khan's party rather than kind of moving in the direction that the court was acknowledging. So in the past, the State Department has said this is a matter for the Pakistani courts to work out. Is it still a matter for the Pakistani courts? You disagree with the government's intervention there?
So I will say that we saw those public statements from the government. Our understanding is this is the beginning of what will be a complex political process, but certainly banning a political concern is something, or a political party is something that would be of great concern to us.
Right. Quick follow-up on Cuba.
Yeah.
We've talked to some Cuban business owners in the wake of the State Department moving them off of the list of people who are not helpful with what is it? The list was states that are not helpful in combating terrorism. They were removed
Yeah.
from that. The business owners in Cuba are saying that because Cuba is still on the state sponsor of terrorism list, that it's harder for them to do business with European countries, with other Latin American countries, than it was even during the Trump administration. Is the State Department still looking at this before the end of Biden's first term?
I just don't have any updates on that process. Sorry. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Two topics. Ukraine. There are reports that Ukrainian leaders walked away frustrated the summit after the U.S. refused the latest request in terms of launching using American weapons to strike inside Russia. Why would the United States not allow them to hit back inside Russia? They believe that striking those launches would help them save lives in the first place.
So first of all, I don't know what reports you're referring to, but I will say that we had incredibly productive discussions with President Zelensky and with other members of the Ukrainian government when they were here last week for the Washington summit. And as part of those discussions, we talked about NATO's irreversible path to NATO, and Ukraine's irreversible path to NATO and the progress that they are making along that path. We talked about the delivery of F-16s to Ukraine, which is underway. We talked about the fact that we are providing them additional air defense systems, something that President Zelensky had specifically asked for, and that we were able to do both from our own stocks and from marshaling the coalition that we have assembled all around the world. With respect to the question, the president actually got this question at his press conference last week and spoke to it quite directly. We have allowed Ukraine to use American-made weapons, American-provided weapons, to strike just across the border where they are taking incoming fire from Russia, but we have decided at this point not to expand beyond that. But that said, you just look at the actions I outlined a moment ago that we took last week, and add those to the actions we have taken for the past 2+ years to support the defense of Ukraine. And I think the suggestion that we are somehow not committed to Ukraine's defense is in every way belied by the actual facts and our actual record.
When the president was asked about that, his response was about the capabilities to strike Moscow. That's not what we're talking about. The question is, why not allow them to strike launch sites?
We have decided that that is not an appropriate step for the United States to take now at this time. But that doesn't change the fact that we have provided Ukraine with significant capabilities to launch attacks against the Russian troops that continue their aggression against Ukraine. that we have provided them with the ability to strike across the border, and of course that we have provided them significant air defenses, which really is what we're talking about here. When you have this question about strikes inside Russia, a lot of it relates to Russia's ability to launch assaults that then, missiles and other weapons, drones and other things that then land inside Ukraine. So we have provided them with air defenses to help repel those attacks, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you. My second topic on Azerbaijan Armenia, the Secretary hosted the meeting says, beyond your readout, could you help us understand if there was any progress noted at all?
So I don't want to give any more detail beyond the readout, other than to say, and you heard the Secretary say this at the opening of the meeting in his public comments. In fact, I think I saw you standing outside the room before those comments, so I know you were there, is that the two parties have made incredible progress, and they have come a long way. And so what we continue to do is push them. A peace agreement between those two countries would mean so much for those countries, and it would mean so much for the region, for peace, stability, for security in the region. We do think a deal is possible, but it requires both sides to make some difficult choices and tough compromises. And so what we're going to do is continue to push them to resolve those final differences and reach an agreement.
Have you succeeded at all in Washington? The Secretary's comments came before.
We have made progress. I'm not going to speak to it in detail, but we don't have an agreement yet, and we're not going to rest until we reach one.
Thank you.
Coming back to Ukraine, the President Zelensky, after returning, has talked about the potential of a second peace summit, and this time Russia would be invited. Is that something that was sort of encouraged by U.S. officials while he was here? He said it just after getting back.
It's something that we discussed with them, but as we have said before, any decisions around diplomatic negotiations are decisions that Ukraine has to make, not the United States, not any other country that's not party to this conflict. Ukraine is the victim here. It's Ukraine that has seen their country invaded, has seen their civilians killed, has seen significant parts of their country occupied. And so it's for Ukraine to decide when and how and in what shape to discuss, to undertake diplomatic negotiations. As their partner, as their backer, we will support them if that's the path that they choose to take. We have always made that clear. And I will note, and this kind of goes to how the Kremlin has responded, at least initially, to those statements from Ukraine. We've always supported diplomacy when Ukraine is ready, but it has never been clear that the Kremlin is ready for actual diplomacy. That was clear at the beginning of this war when we were pursuing diplomacy, and the Kremlin pulled a plug on diplomacy and invaded. And it seems to remain true today, but we will continue to stand with Ukraine, and if and when they believe further diplomatic steps are with Russia are appropriate, we will support them in that decision.
But that is a change. That previously they held a peace conference and didn't invite Russia. So doesn't that show an unwillingness from the Ukrainians to engage in sort of, you might not agree on everything, but you could at least bring them to the table.
So I guess correct, but the difference is there's just a fundamental difference between Ukraine and Russia in this conflict, in that one is the aggressor, one's the victim. And so we do look at the victim differently than the aggressor, right? It's just a fundamental fact of this conflict, that it was Russia that launched this war, Russia that is occupying Ukraine, Russia that continues to launch assaults, Russia that can end the conflict today by withdrawing back to their borders. And so, of course, we look at them differently because one has the moral high ground and one does not. But our position with respect to negotiations hasn't changed, and that's if and when Ukraine is ready to pursue either direct negotiations or direct diplomacy or some other form of diplomacy, we will support them in that decision.
And from this administration's point of view, there's basically there's no point at which you would tell Ukraine that you need to come to the table now. That's never going to be. I guess I'm asking because depending on who might be the vice presidential pick for the Republican nominee, and things that the Republican nominee has spoken about Ukraine, it seems like there's a reasonable possibility, depending on which way you think the election's going to go, that early next year the situation's going to look quite different. So from the Ukrainians' point of view, do you think they might be responding to U.S. political realities by making this step?
I am not going to speculate or comment in any way on why the Ukrainians might be making that decision, other than to say that lots of times you hear people say, we want to see peace in Ukraine. Of course, we want to see peace too. We want it to be a just peace. Not just any peace, but a just peace and a lasting peace. And so we'll support Ukraine in the decisions that they make to try to achieve that just peace.
Can I follow up on
Yeah.
that? Obviously, he's talking about a summit, which we're talking about the month of November, so.
Is anything else happening then?
Exactly. But just to follow up on that, I mean, the new thing is that the Ukrainian president is saying the Russians should be at the table. So, I mean, the question, and which is different
Yeah.
from the summit in Geneva or next to Geneva or wherever. So, do you support that? Yes or no? I mean, you're.
Yes, we support the
So you
we
think
support
the
the
Russians
government
should
of
be at the
Ukraine and make it. So again, it is not a decision for us to make, right? That's I'm not trying to be cagey.
Granted.
It is a decision for. It has always been our view that decisions with respect to diplomacy around this conflict need to be decisions made by Ukraine, where Ukraine is in the driver's seat. And so, if they want to invite Russia to that summit, of course that is something we support. That's a decision that they, as a direct party to this war, as the country that's seen their borders invaded, their people killed, they should make, and we will support them in it.
You know, the Russians have always said that they actually support, and they were close, in fact, to reaching an agreement with Ukraine back in April 2022, that before Mr. Boris Johnson scuttled the whole deal. Do you have any comment on that? I mean, that was their position all along.
That is not the first unreliable